This can't continue. It makes no sense. We're getting nowhere.
Hello and welcome to the Fisher Protocol, a channel dedicated to the world's greatest rock and roll band, The Who. The band is a shared passion of ours, and these discussions are more of a personal journey than a critical review. Also, no money is made from these videos, so please let us know that we are not alone in Who land by taking a quick second to like, subscribe, and share us with your Who-minded friends. Constructive feedback is always welcome, either in the comments below or on Twitter and Instagram at Fisher Protocol. My name is Ethan, and today on the show I am joined by Betts and Eliza to discuss the 1994 Broadway production of The Who's Tommy. We do not claim to be experts, just fans of the world's greatest rock and roll band, The Who. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Betts, welcome back.
Yes, it's great to be back.
How's your summer?
Eventful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Eliza, welcome to your first time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, yes. We've been talking for a while. We're glad you're here.
Yes.
So before we get started, before we get into the Broadway production of Tommy, we're doing a summer special show here. We're going to come back in October. Before we get going, we were working on some albums to talk about, and Tom will be back for those. But if anyone could send in some suggestions, anyone out there, we've had a couple requests for shows since we've been away. I really appreciate it. If anyone wants to send any ideas, you can put them in the comments below or find us at all the Fisher Protocol places to give us some ideas. I'm willing to stretch out a little bit, maybe get out of my comfort zone and talk about some other things, memorabilia, additions, concerts, whatever. So send them in and we will get going on that soon. Okay, so let's get into it. Today's guest is Eliza. We met on Twitter, and it's basically you could tell after following her for a while, she kind of just I don't know if the right word, just the air of the Broadway version of Tommy and moddom in general kind of flowed from her. So we've been talking about doing this for a while. So hi, Eliza.
Hi, Ethan.
Yeah. So before we get into the show itself, we always have to do like the questionnaire at the front, right? You have to prove your credentials to the Who faithful. So we have a very small but loyal fan base, just like the Who. We're not as big as some of these other bands, as they call them. I always tell myself I'm not going to do that. So how did you find the world's greatest rock and roll band?
So I grew up with oldies. My dad is older than other average dads of people my age. So I kind of grew up around classic rock, R&B, and you converge the two. There's a lot of Who in there.
That's cool. I was actually thinking about that the other day because I was looking at these playlists from satellite radio and everything, and you take these top four. It's still the same. They play the same top 40s over and over again, and stuff like Pictures of Lily is not in there, and it just makes me mad. Is anything specific about the Who that made them click with you as opposed to the other things your dad was probably playing for you?
Here's where I guess the theater kid part kind of came in, kind of that interest in rock operas and storytelling through rock. So when I was little, I had a traumatic brain injury, and I had to relearn how to do a lot of things. There was a lot of rehabilitation. And that's something I still deal with today. But while I was in recovery, my dad put on Tommy, and he's like, "Oh, it's you."
Nice.
And that was a really big part of my coping. And then years later, I'm like, this is a comfort album that's going to get me through the pandemic.
Right on. So was it the original album?
Yes,
Okay.
predominantly. And then I was a theater kid. I heard about the stage productions and.
Okay. Now we're gonna get into Tommy, but really quick, for a non-Tommy, unless it's the song you picked, I'm sorry, but your non-greatest hit favorite Who song. I like to ask people that.
Oh God, does Bargain count?
I think Bargain counts.
I love Bargain.
Yeah.
That's the go-to song if I want to show someone the Who and how gorgeous they are.
Yeah, and it's great, and the lyrics, especially in that bridge, are very personal to me. I really like it. So, yeah, good choice. And you know what I mean? Greatest hits are the first CD. I want to hear what you like on the second CD of Greatest Hits. So that's good. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you: have you seen the band live, and when?
I did. April 27th. At the Emily Arena in Tampa. And it was really fun. I felt like I was like seeing like God or something.
Let me tell you something. You were. And there's no better way to see God than play Naked Eye, and I know you saw that. So
that was really fun.
Yeah, the Totes of My Jelly is complete. Your favorite album is obviously Tommy, I assume.
Yes, for sentimental reasons, but objectively, I'm gonna go with Quadrophenia as like composition wise.
Sure. It's mine too. Bets, what's yours again?
I think I said originally that it was Who's Next. It kind of fluctuates between Who's Next and sometimes the Who Sell Out.
Right.
Depending on where I'm at, where my headspace is.
I gotcha. And if you were going to, last question on your, are you allowed in the Who Club or not? Obviously you are. If you were going to introduce the band to someone, what would you give them?
I mean, Who's Next is a given. That's even like as a hooligan, that's like one of my like top no skip albums. I will not skip a single track on that album.
Yeah, it's a good one. And then they'll be like, oh, I've heard this song before. And you're like, yeah, you have. Okay. All right. So today we're talking about the 1994, The Who's Tommy on Broadway. Just to give you where I was at that time, it was between when I found the band in 1989 and before I saw them in 1996. So I was just a Who vacuum of epic proportions praying for a reunion. That's all I was doing. So this filled the void as far as something to do greatly. So I followed it with great interest. Every time Michael Cerverus was on something like Regis and Kathy Lee, I made sure it was taped or I was watching it. I didn't get to go see it in New York. I did get to go see it at the Kennedy Center when it came around, because that's what you do. If you live in this area, you wait for it to come around the Kennedy Center.
That was with Casey Cott?
I don't remember. I was so, But there was TVs all over the place. It's like almost like the Broadway one, but things are a little bit cheaper. You know what I mean? Until now.
It's almost like a concertized version. But there's still that theatrical element.
No, I mean, this was the first go around of the national company. So it had a bunch of stuff.
Okay, I'm thinking earlier Kennedy Center production. Because I know they just did one like a couple of years ago.
It's funny when you're talking about Broadway, because I've seen The Phantom of the Opera like 4 or 5 times in many years apart, and each time it's a new production, but each time it's greatly reduced in price, and you can tell in the set and everything.
Uh-huh.
So while this one did not have all of everything, there were still TVs, that covered the whole stage back and front, and you still played the mechanical bull pinball wizard machine, and all that kind of stuff was still in that first one. I saw it many years later at the Warner Theater, and it was definitely like a couple of barrels. You know what I mean? And like a epoxy pinball box. Betts, do you have any history with the show, the Broadway?
At the point that it came out on Broadway, I think I was in my goth phase, so I wasn't paying that much attention to it. I had a T-shirt, I remember that, but I just wasn't as front and center with it until I got really got seriously back into them about 98, 99. But last year I saw a community theater production of it, and I took a friend of mine who actually saw it on the West End. And I have to say that he was really impressed with, and I was impressed basically with how well the community theater version of it was. I mean, it was really good. And if you had told me these were like local actors, I wouldn't have believed it. I was super impressed. Stage, the setting, the acting, everything about it was just great.
Well, yeah, no, it's not the Music Man or anything.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with the Music Man, but there's a crop of Broadway show that you would see for 30 years at a community theater.
Yeah. Well, this one's kind of cutting edge. They're doing SpongeBob right now, but I will say this: they had like the theme cocktail, and they had like it was an acid teeny.
Oh,
So
nice.
I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Nice. And Eliza, have you seen the show?
Not live. However, the community theater slash performing arts school that I went to growing up, I did a production like right before I started enrolling in classes there. And like, I know half the people who are in that cast. Our Tommy has gone on to like Broadway. He was Jerry Goffin in the closing cast of Beautiful, the Carole King musical.
Okay.
He was also on the tour of Jersey Boys, which was also a Des McAnuff thing. And it's just really great. All these people are going up to great things in theater.
Yeah, it's great when you know people and they do well. My son went to go see the gentleman who just won the Tony for MJ for playing Michael Jackson, and apparently he's from my area and went to one of the high schools around here. I forgot his name. I'm sorry to say, but I didn't see him. My son did. Anyway, so we're in 1994. Eliza, you sent some things over, and you had some notes on the history of this thing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, like before premieres, things that happened to get it to that point?
So I think it all started, I want to say like right when Pete had that biking accident and he like totally wrecked his hand, didn't know if he was going to play again. He was recovering, kind of doing whatever. And this is like right on the end of the Iron Man musical and its success in like children's theater in the UK. So Des McAnuff, the like head producer at La Jolla Playhouse in San Diego, reached out. And he was like a big like rock opera fan. I think he wrote a rock opera like during his college days. And so he reached out to Pete and was like, hey, I want to stage a production of Tommy. I know you've tried it in the past. It didn't work, but here are my plans. Can I get your blessing? And Pete reached out, and initially he was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. But eventually, I don't know how, he just had a really, really heavy hand in making it. And I think a really, really crucial part of Pete's involvement is his, I guess, reworking of the plot, because Pete had a plot laid out when he first made the album, right? And they had to like rework things and just change kind of how Tommy played out in the rock opera.
Was it changing the father and the lover dynamic kind of thing?
I think it was just the order of the songs and how that worked out.
I know too that they talked about the album, the original album kind of leaves it open to interpretation, the ending, whereas as Pete said, in theater you have to have a solid ending, you have to wrap it up. And so they worked this ending out, the ending that we have now, which is so different from the record and very different from the movie. But you did have to sort of button up that plot line in the theater.
Well, the movie and the album are basically like the same. Like, we don't know what happens. Right? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I think, are there 2 new songs on the movie soundtrack?
There's like 3
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
I guess they're songs. I don't really know. Okay, so first of all, the whole time I was reading, because I got this book that, I had it back then and I bought a new one recently. If it's familiar. Yeah.
I have this as well.
Yes. I found them for $6 online, guys. They're not hard to get. It was wrapped new. It's not hard.
Nice.
Tommy the musical book. The whole time I was reading this, I definitely pronounced it La Jolla for about 5 to 10 years. So that's my interesting story about that.
It's San Diego. It's near the Mexican border. You're gonna have a lot of Spanish names. So La Jolla.
La Jolla. Yeah. It makes me think of Exquisitely Bored. Off of All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes. All right, so I guess there's no way to not go through the album because of some of the differences that I really did like. And I don't know if you guys have an opinion or comment, but I was very excited because this is the first time, for me anyway, that they used the guitar intro from the overture before It's a Boy.
Mm-hmm.
It got moved into the score as a proper use of the score, which is something they do now when the Who plays overture live.
Yeah.
But this is something that Pete did live electrically and acoustically in '89. But this is like a note for note recreation of the album. And when I was, I know a little bit how Broadway works, and just the fact that there's a guy whose job it is every night with a guitar to go into the orchestra and play that note for note just made me very happy inside.
It was something that was really interesting, and I think it was a super good call, was that they wanted to keep to the spirit of the original album. So there was no 90s update. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want to make the song sound like the 90s, which I think would have badly dated it by now. So yeah, they were just like, we're just going to keep it to the spirit of the original record, make it sound like what the original record sounded like. And that was an excellent call, in my opinion. And I think one of the objections to the movie was that the artists performing the songs in the movie made those songs sound like they belonged to the artist and not the Who. Elton John's Pinball Wizard being a prime example of that. So they wanted to avoid that.
Which is weird because Pinball Wizard and the Acid Queen are my two favorite things off that album, and they're in the style of those artists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do like the little, the bugle at the beginning of Amazing Journey.
Mm-hmm.
And Eliza, I definitely want to get your take, if you have any opinions about this whole, the older Tommy coming in as the narrator here, and the use of the three Tommies throughout.
I think as someone who suffered a trauma as a kid, which deeply impaired them, and now as an adult, as an advocate, as someone who looks back on that, I think that's beautiful. Having the older Tommy come in and be that kind of narrator, kind of telling the story, and also kind of acting not as a protector, but almost like an overseer of the events of his childhood. I don't know. It works. It works really well.
I mean, and who doesn't want to go back and tell their 10-year-old self to do something like this, or nudge them in a right direction? You know what I mean? That's what spoke to me about it.
Mm-hmm. Another thing about the beginning, aside from the storytelling during the overture, because they don't really have words. I mean, you have, I think, during the Walker's wedding, the priest doing the whole sermon, the vows thing, but the rest of that, just telling the story through the overture of Tommy's parents, Captain Walker going off to war. Really well done.
Yeah, and some things stick out, and I'll get a little critical, it's really I'm trying to enjoy the overture, and then I hear Uncle Ernie talking about sardines and an egg. I'm like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need that, but that's the show. I understand. I do like Sparks. I remember Sparks very well. That's when he's getting all the tests and everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel... I do have a criticism about Sparks. It's the repetitiveness, the reprises over and over again. Because there's a reprise of Sparks, I think after Sensation. I'm like, more tests, cool, nothing happens.
But it's also, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, I just always give a counterpoint, you know what I mean? And it's always well, if you had a kid, you would be taking him for more tests.
Yeah.
All the time. Two, I mean, Tommy is replete with reprises anyway. And when you have a Broadway show, you have to make certain allowances. And, there's going to be reprises in Broadway. So you have an album that has reprises. The Underture on the original album is a reprise. You know what I mean? So,
mm-hmm.
but I I see what you're. I get what you're laying down there. I understand.
Yeah.
You know, there's not too much to say for me as far as the whole like the trifecta of horrors. You know what I mean? Uncle Ernie, Acid Queen, Cousin Kevin. They're pretty standard. They're good. The Acid Queen is obviously the best. I think it's just the best out of the songs.
Yeah, that's a showstopper for real.
Yeah.
I will say, I find the choice of the difference between Keith Moon's Ernie in the movie and the stage Ernie is a really interesting choice for me, because in the movie he's so loathsome and so disgusting, and he's a cartoon character and he's funny in a way. But in the play, it's a lot more insidious, because we talked about the sardines and eggs and things. You know, he's helping Mrs. Walker. He's getting black market food to her when they're starving during the war, and this and that and everything else. And then it's a lot more insidious, you know, the way he sort of works himself in there. Whereas Moon's Ernie is just, like I said, a caricature, a monster, you know, just absolutely loathsome from jump. This Ernie sort of works his way in subtly. And we were in the front row at the show that I saw, and it was all I could do. I wanted to just jump up and go, "No, Ernie, no, back." But it works so well, because that's more of the nature of that kind of character.
I think that was really needed, especially for the 90s, as like time went on. That you can't make that that can't be a joke.
No,
you can't joke about that.
No.
You could even joke about that in the 60s and 70s, who got away with it. They had criticisms publicly. And I really think that the kind of delving into Uncle Ernie and Cousin Kevin's characters is really important, because like they are family members, and they're not gonna like show up and then leave. They do have their scenes, and they do have character building in the show, and I really enjoyed that.
I know too, Pete addressed the ending of the play and said like a lot of people were really unhappy about it, because Tommy kind of reconciles with Kevin and Ernie and all that. And I know at some point he mentioned, well, maybe he's reconciling with them to give him a false sense of comfort, because then he's really going to drop the bomb on him after the show is over, kind of situation. But then he kind of, you know, went back to, no, it really is sort of a reconciliation and a forgiveness. When I first saw the show that I went to advertised, they talked about it's a story of redemption and love and all this. And I was like, Tommy, you know, because my feeling for Tommy was always the album, which I thought was rather satiric, you know, and I didn't see it as this story of love and redemption. But seeing the play, you know, I definitely see that now, and it worked.
They've always been the most difficult part of any version of Tommy, right? You know, and I think that's part of the genius of it. Like, whether they call it sick opera or not, you have to reckon with that. And whether it's the 60s or the 70s or the 90s, or now. Back then, if Pete was basing this on his grandmother or anyone that he was left with, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know how things ended with them, but it probably wasn't in him telling her to go to, you know, calling the authorities on her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. He threw an amplifier at her once. I know that.
Well, Pete's gonna Pete. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's why, you know, he went to John and said, write these two songs, because I can't do it. And John, of course, obliged, because John was a dark guy anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. And there is a bunch of stuff in here. The actor who played him, and I don't know his name. Does anyone know his name off the bat?
Is it from the show? Was it Kendall? What's the last name?
Paul Kendall.
Yeah. And he goes a lot in here about how he has to build the character and everything like that. And you know, I mean, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I got to talk about a thing I really don't like. Kind of the thing that, because we're going into Pinball Wizard here, okay? And it's the thing that really kind of stops. I don't want to say the whole show, because when I was listening to it, I was having fun. But there's one specific choice that has always bothered me about this show. The British accents.
Oh, they're ridiculous. I don't know who their dialect coach was, but they did not do a good job. I have a bunch of British friends who really, really enjoy the show, and they like openly mock it. They're like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. What is this?"
It's not even so much like the talking.
It's almost distracting.
Yeah, when you're singing in a British accent, because I've said this story before, and I don't know if you guys feel the same. I hear the Beatles for the first time. They sound great. Then you hear them talk at a press conference. You're like, whoa, what's going on? They don't sing like that. And same thing with like Adele. You hear her talk. It's completely different than when she's singing. I'm not saying they're singing in an American accent, but they don't sound so British. And they're going out of their way here to sing in a bad British accent. It's very off-putting.
It's like the theater tradition of singing whatever in whatever dialect is for the character, just to like portray it. But it is something to criticize in this show and in the cast recording.
All right, I don't want to hammer it, so I won't, because I did skip Sensation. I want to talk about something in Sensation, because Sensation was moved to before Pinball Wizard, and it has became like a centerpiece, which I think is great because I think it's an underrated song in general. And only recently, and I think I told Eliza about this when it happened, and only recently I made a connection between Freddie Mercury at the 1986 Wembley concert and Tommy's yellow jacket in this show. My favorite image in rock, it might be Freddie Mercury in that yellow jacket. So I finally put those kind of things together, and I, in my mind, I want them to be related.
Yeah. It's pretty great. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know that the jacket was originally white. I guess, I don't know. Nobody ever explained it. I talked briefly with the costume designer in DMs, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like they did it to kind of make it like stand out, to pop out. Because I know that he did go into detail about how some of those more vibrant colors in the costume were in a lot of the scenes where Tommy experiences the most trauma.
Okay.
That's kind of a thing that he did. I don't know.
Yeah, the less I say about like the grand color scheme of the whole thing, the better, I think, for me. I made a border that was blue. That's all, Anything else you guys noticed in that first act that you liked or didn't like before I go on to Act 2?
We briefly covered Sensation, and I really like that change because, like, in the show, you have little Tommy having that sort of trauma, and, Cousin Kevin and all his church friends are, like, making fun of him, putting stupid outfits on him, just tormenting the ever-loving crap out of him, putting him in trash cans and stuff. And as a joke, Kevin, like, puts him at a pinball machine and is like, oh.
Yeah.
And it turns out to, like, be an accidental success. Right. And during Sensation, you have that interaction between older Tommy and little Tommy, and it's just really wholesome. I don't know. I really like it.
Well, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, you found the thing. It's pure, whatever a pure thing is, right? People say football is pure, like, but it's just a bad example. But still.
In that scene, you also have kind of this introduction of the people who grow up with Tommy, and they're there for like the entire show, and their costumes reflect the time periods. Their sentiments change based on like their interaction with Tommy. And it was just kind of like a last minute thing. And I really like an ensemble that you can like connect to, that has like discernible qualities.
Yeah, well, you can tell when someone's cares about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And when you have everyone that cares in the background, it helps. It makes for a better show for everybody. Well, then I guess we take an intermission.
Time to get an acid teeny.
Yeah, acid teeny. Whatever your pleasure. Go to the Mirror is my favorite song in Tommy, of course, as I've said a billion times. I love this version. Besides Michael Cerveris, I guess the other one who's probably, I don't know who you can say has a better career, it doesn't matter. It's amazing, but Norm Lewis here plays the specialist. And, it took me a while to remember, but, I mean, I've been watching this guy for years on my 25th anniversary, Les Miserables, right? He plays Javert. And I was looking at videos last night, and he was Broadway's first African-American Phantom. And, Tommy is like the first for a lot of people. Eliza, I know you had some notes about that. Who, besides Norm and Michael, do you have anyone to like point out in that way?
Alice Ripley. Not gonna get into that with what happened last year, but
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Award-winning actress. She was originally the specialist's assistant. She sings in the background and sings those harmonies with Norm Lewis. And she went on to replace the original actress who played Mrs. Walker. And that was like a really, really big deal for her career. Who else? Michael McElroy, who played the Hawker, is now the head professor at University of Michigan, which is like the hardest theater program to get into. And he's like in charge of all that. Cheryl Freeman, the Acid Queen, played one of the muses in Disney's Hercules.
Oh, that's really cool.
Paul Candel was in Hunchback of Notre Dame. And Sherry Renee Scott, also a phenomenal actress who played Sally Simpson. And she went on to be in The Little Mermaid on Broadway with Norm Lewis.
Who was he?
So, he was King Triton.
Okay.
She was Ursula.
I can do that whole song, but I'm not going to do it. The Daughters one. I'm not going to. I'll do that. The Little Mermaid cast will come out later. Great. So yeah, I love good that they kept the listening to you in, which is an improvement over the movie. So I like that very much. And someone who could actually sing the doctor part, so that's good. Let's just I just want to skip to my favorite part of the show, which is I Believe My Own Eyes. Betsy, you have anything? Do you like that song? How do you feel?
I do like it. For me, it sounds like, of course, it was written specifically for this. It sounds like musical theater, it doesn't sound like something The Who would do, so I still like it. It really works. It works with the show and everything like that. Doesn't sound like a Who song. I mean, I don't know, but it still works. I really like it.
Well, he definitely does inverts the chords, and he works in some of those Tommy themes.
Yeah.
Into it, and of course, if you
he works Go to the Mirror into that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you purchase this book, which you can still find online, the reason I got it originally was because it comes with a CD, which is Pete's quote-unquote demo for I Believe My Own Eyes.
Wow. Okay.
And I think they did that for
you can find it on YouTube. I know that.
Can you? Okay.
I posted it. I've tweeted it when I was starting to do this research. So it's definitely there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a Who completist thing. I need Pete performing every Tommy song, and so and that's the second one of those I have.
Yeah.
So, also, this is a good time to point out, like, there's a bunch of things that came out at this time to help promote. And one of them was this awesome DVD CD-ROM.
CD-ROM, yeah.
With book, and I've tried recently to play it, and it's no good anymore.
Oh.
Because it needs a Microsoft Windows compatible machine. No number, no 97, no 7, no 10. and you need QuickTime, and it came out in 1996. But it's got a great book, and it's the history of Tommy and all that kind of fun stuff. So
Hey, we need a hero to upload all that stuff to YouTube. So if you're out there and you have it and it's still compatible with your PC, upload it to YouTube so we can. Okay.
some virtual reality-ness there.
Yeah. And there was a pinball machine too.
I had the privilege of playing it. Bet, if you're ever in Tarpon Springs, go to the Ripley Museum. They have it there. They also have Captain Fantastic.
Okay, cool. Nice.
They don't have Wizard, though. They don't have the trifecta of Tommy machines.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, Eliza, because are you still, I don't know if you're still working, or if you even want to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm still working at the arcade. I just worked yesterday, hella long shift, so my feet are still like achy. But I started my little summer job there. It's really fun. I've learned a lot. Because I used to suck at pinball, and then over time I've like started to practice. I've gotten the hang of it. I know like what the deal is, how to get all those ramps.
Hey, but you don't need to put on your eye shades or corks or anything like that.
Nope.
Right? Yeah.
I've tried learning how to play it backwards though, like where you turn around and.
Oh, okay. Right on. So you dress like Sally Simpson and you work at a pinball arcade. You're cool with us, you know. Check out this. It's a single. It's I guess I don't know where I got it. One side's Pinball Wizard, Sensation, and Overture, and I got my original program from the.
Oh, I have that as well. I have like all my Tommy merch with me.
Yeah, Tommy merch. That's where it's at. I know that I'll message you sometimes the very expensive things that go on sale from the New York production, like the castle. I got this leather jacket. I remember those leather jackets. Those were nice. Yeah, so do you like playing the Tommy pinball machine?
I think it's really fun because it plays like the entire, or not the entire, but a whole chunk of the cast recording. And like the whole like objective is to get through the plot.
Right. And if you don't, you can, because we have one near me about a half hour away. And I've spent some time in there and I didn't get very far. You heard the exact same songs over and over again. And the speakers aren't that great. And, you know, I still think it's a big missed opportunity that there's not an original album version of that pinball machine.
I know there's a mod for it. I know that the one in Tarpon, they put in the mod where they put the original rock opera and some of the tracks from the movie.
I was definitely looking at building a digital cabinet a while ago, and it would definitely be black with blue, like diamondy things on it.
I just for a moment, just fitting the Pinball Wizard into the plot. I always felt, you know, we talked about on the previous show when we talked about the original record, that the Pinball Wizard was inserted so that Nick Cohn would give it a good review, and it never quite made sense for me. The fact that they tightened up the plot for this production and set it between the end of World War II to 1963, dropping that pinball motif in there works, and it makes sense in that aspect, because say originally I was just like, dude, you're just trying to get a good review on Nick Cohn.
Right.
So it's like the only version of pinball that they had, like, what, 1930s, if Tommy's like that sort of age of playing pinball and leading a cult, after 1921 being these little like the only version of that is like a very like basic, like kind of like a pachinko.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Tommy, the timeline in the original album has always not set right with me, just because it seems so weird. Tightening this up and bookending it right before, you know, the British invasion, it makes sense and it works.
And I know that was kind of like touched upon in the movie, but I do know that Des McAnuff, I think his father was in the Canadian Air Force. I don't know. But he like talked to Pete about it. He's like, that was like my childhood, that post-war period, just like, you know, like everyone else. And that was a big draw to keeping that part of the plot.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Take out the pinball? Come on. I do like the, well, it's after I'm Free, which is next, which, you know, I love I'm Free. That metal thing they put on his head, the deaf, dumb, and blind mask is a lot better in this than I think in the movie. But I guess you have to have one of those. You know, I don't have much to say about, you know, Miracle Cure, I'm Free. They're pretty standard. I don't know what you guys think.
Same.
I like that Tommy disowns his parents and I'm Free. He's like, I'm out of here. You guys suck. You guys were going to institutionalize me. Hell no. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot those little plot points. Because I haven't seen the show. I just listened to it. I think that's stuff. You know, Pete didn't want a lot of dance in this, and he's like, "Hey, you got to have some dance, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of leaving, you know, cutting off from your parents, I know I watched the interview with him this morning when the production premiered at the La Jolla Playhouse, and he talks about, you know, one of the things about Tommy, one of the themes is that when you're a child in a family, you're the star of the family, and when things go sideways for you, a lot of times it's because your parents have, you know, done a number on you. And I think that works in that regard.
Yeah, the only number I've pulled on my child is showing him that Tommy movie. And when that change was made 1921 to 1951, he still talks about it. He's so betrayed. Still mad. But I'm going to blow his mind. Next week, I think I'm going to take him to Roger Waters. So, yeah, there you go.
I want to go to Roger Waters so bad.
That's an aside. They're really cheap tickets. They're really
I know. Tell my best friend, because she...
Hey, best friend.
She doesn't want to get...
Okay, but those visuals are
get her
like...
ass. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, like...
So listen, if anybody's in the Central Florida area and they want to go see Roger Waters, I'll buy the ticket. You drive the car. We're going to see Roger Waters. Put your name in the comments.
Right. Go see Roger Waters. Speaking of Rogers, let's talk about how they went against type for Tommy as far as, you know, giving him short black hair that was straight instead of long curly hair.
I feel like a lot of it, I mean, you know, as much as Tommy is Roger, Tommy's also Pete, and I really like that direction. Tommy in the show looks like Pete's self-insert with a bowl cut mullet, complete white, almost kind of like the boiler suit.
Yeah.
That was my
definitely
nice. I never thought about that with the boiler suit. Good.
Yeah. I knew too that at some point before this even began, that when it was still in the talking stages, that Pete actually said, like, I need to call Roger. I need to get his okay on this. And we talked again in the previous show about how embodying Tommy, even though it's kind of autobiographical for Pete, sort of gave Roger that position in the band that he was safe now. Because remember, he was on tenterhooks for a long time.
Right.
But yeah, Roger gave his permission, but then later on, interestingly enough, Roger filed suit.
And so did John, right?
Yeah, John joined the suit. Yeah. And because I think Pete was pulling like $45,000 a week at some point, you know, and they did 899 performances on Broadway alone. And at some point, the law office was like, you know, you're spending more money than you could conceivably win on this, and they had to drop the suit. But yeah, Pete had to get Roger's permission to even go forward. And I think it was a courtesy thing, really. But
I mean,
yeah.
It's a courtesy thing. It's a fan thing. I mean,
yeah.
You know, how demonized else, you know, he's already been demonized at that point so long for not having the band together.
Yeah.
You know, and I know I don't remember if he thanked them physically with his mouth or they were thanked on the plaque in front of him when he won the Tony. I forgot which one they were.
Yeah.
I know that, like, they spelled Roger's name wrong. And the little like the little thing, I don't know, the little graphic when they aired the Tony Awards. Ironically, they didn't spell John's name wrong for once.
And maybe we'll get into that one day about how you can after what happened in '89, how you would think to sue the man. But we can get into that later. Maybe that's a whole other show. Or not. And Eliza, if you just want to go over, like, to take us to the end, just go over the whole Sally Simpson and the question and what the ending is.
Oh boy, where do I start? So once, and I'm Free, Tommy kind of disowns his family. He goes to like the youth, the people who grew up with him, and cousin Kevin, who's like leader of the pack, and they kind of like take him off, turn him into like a superstar. He becomes a rock musician. I don't know, it's a little confusing. But Tommy becomes this like performing artist, going to like concerts and stuff. So that's what Tommy's holiday camp is. It's not like an actual holiday camp. It's like a tour name.
Okay.
Like Who Hits Back and all that sort of stuff. It's Tommy's holiday camp. So, Tommy has all these adoring fans, and you have this young lady, Sally Simpson, very age-appropriate love interest, not an actual child this time around. And she's just kind of like this fangirl, and she's like, I love this man. I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to, like, put my scarf around him and just, fangirl stuff. And, Tommy accidentally, like, pushes her off the stage. Security, aka Kevin, and all of his friends start beating her up, and Tommy sees this. He's like, is this what fame is? I don't want this. If you're gonna like brutalize my fan base, I don't want this. I'm going home. So like, it's sort of a spontaneous decision to bring all of his fans and everybody back to his home, even though he hasn't talked to his family in I think it's a 3-year time skip. And I kind of relate to that because, I don't know, brain damage. I make spontaneous decisions that are kind of out there, and I'm like, I would do that.
Right.
I don't know. So he brings everyone home. He takes care of Sally. They start having a thing. And
do they? Are they an item at the end? Do they?
Not really.
Okay.
It's complicated.
All right.
So once they bring everyone into Tommy's house, you have this whole news crew. They're like interviewing him, and they ask Sally to like say something to him, and she's like, "You're so successful. You've been through all of this. How can we be more like you?" And Tommy is like, hold up. I went through all this crap as a child. I was completely unresponsive, completely impaired. It was hell for me. You do not want to be like me. Enough with what a lot of people call inspiration porn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When like a disabled person like does something that's like out of the ordinary, and people are like, oh, it's so inspirational. Oh, they're just so cool.
Yeah.
And that's a really big takeaway from this show for me. And I think that was a really, really interesting detail for 1993 to call that sort of behavior out, because like that was kind of unheard of.
Well, also like
been up until now.
Well, also it's like that, you've seen the famous John Lennon clip where the guy breaks into his house, right? And he's like, "Well, I'll talk to you for a minute." Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because he wrote these. Yeah, but I'm just a guy. I'm just trying to live at the house. What
Yeah.
I mean? I came up with a poem about strawberry fields. Great, but why are you doing this? The same kind of thing. I'm sure Pete has had that exact same
Mm-hmm.
experience. I relate to those, but yeah.
So, oh God, we're not going to take it as kind of that segue into Tommy calling out his fan base, saying, my childhood was not fun. me being a pinball wizard is a small, I guess, prize for all the terrible things I went through as a child. And if you don't like that, so what? And everyone's like, oh, we're going to cancel, bye. And everyone sort of leaves. Even Sally leaves. She's kind of like hesitant, but she heads out, leaving only the family, and that's sort of the end, towards the end.
I can see where that could be completely autobiographical.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, as far as like the ending of the show, I don't take this as the Tommy for me. Honestly, I don't. And I don't know if I need to, but it is something to enjoy, and it's a good interpretation. And I know that he's working on stage versions of this since almost the early 70s. Mm-hmm. Before that, I went to Hebrew school with a young man whose father played Uncle Ernie in the original touring company in the 70s. And unfortunately, he had the bad luck to have me as a Hebrew school mate. So this poor, nice gentleman who's a cantor in California now, just, here comes Ethan again with the Who questions. So it did win a bunch of Tonys. It was up against Kiss of the Spider Woman that year. But it did win Best Direction of a Musical, Best Choreography, Best Original Score, Best Scenic Design, and Best Lighting Design. Which is not bad.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're going up a Cantor and Ebb. That's extremely impressive, especially with like a lot of new cast and creatives. Because these were all like up and coming people. Meanwhile, you have all the people involved with Kiss of the Spider Woman, and they're like all these very, very well renowned creatives, cast, whatever. They were the underdog of that Tony season. They managed to pull through.
Yeah, but he's also like, I'm not being argumentative.
Nostalgia thing.
He's also like, rock star coming in, and even if you're Broadway, you think rock stars are cool. Mm-hmm. And I know that Pete went out and did The Town a lot. He had a bit of a relapse in that time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, I'm very grateful for it, because if it did anything, it got him so sick of Tommy, he wanted to go back to Quadrophenia, and then when he got the band back together in 1996, and that's when I saw him, and great. I mean, I don't have much else to say. Did you guys have any wrap-ups about the Who's Tommy on Broadway? Bets?
I'll say this. I was really pleasantly surprised by when I saw it. The tightened up timeline really worked for me. And the fact that Tommy's sort of an evolving piece. You've got the album, the original album, which has that sort of open ending, messianic kind of thing happening. You've got the movie, which is just straight up camp and over the top and ridiculous. And then as things sort of evolve for Pete's life, you get this 90s version where it becomes more about, I don't want to be different. I want to fit in. I want to be a regular person living a regular life and sort of reconciling with the family. It's a great, it really is, the stripped down version just really works for me.
Mm-hmm. God, there's a very solid legacy of this show being on Broadway. First, when it was staged at La Jolla, I know like most of the proceeds went to research for cognitive disability, especially autism. And, looking back, it might have been questionable. That's a whole can of worms. But that was a huge thing in the early days of Tommy. You had a lot of people getting into theater as a result of it being like so casual and so accessible. This was one of the like centerpiece accessible shows that got people into theater. You have Alex Brightman, who starred in School of Rock on Broadway, Beetlejuice. He's still very, very prominent. And his first show on Broadway was Cats, and he's like, what the hell is this? And then he went and saw Tommy the next day, and he was like, oh, that's what theater is. That's where it clicked for him. It's a really common community theater production. I forgot to mention, the cast recording was produced by George Martin of Beatles.
Yes.
I did know that. And I read that earlier today. I was like, that's weird. It almost seems like stunt casting to me, a little. Stunt producing. I don't know. Beatles fans, calm down. I don't know what was going on with the day-to-day with the recording of Tommy and what George Martin did or didn't do. It just seems like stunt casting to me. That's all I'm saying.
A little bit.
Okay. And again, I don't know. But I saw Get Back. Anyway, I'll just say that. You guys know what I'm talking about. Glyn Johns. Anyway, also I want to point out that ever since this came out, I have followed Michael Cerveris's career, and every time he pops up, I get so happy because he was Tommy, right? And I know later on he was in my absolute favorite Broadway musical of all time, Assassins, which is, just an amazing, if you get the London cast recording. I think he won a Tony for that. I know he did Sweeney Todd, and every time he pops up on TV and movies, I get all excited. Because he's not a household name, but I know him, and I know people that like Broadway know him very well. You know what I mean? And I just love that guy, and I love his attitude. And he got a good first job, So, unless you guys have something to say, I just wanted to thank you for coming on for the summer edition of the Fisher Protocol. Bets, I'll see you soon, October.
Yes.
We'll do something.
It'll be October. Yeah, October is John month, so
and
some
Eliza,
John content in there.
Is it? Yeah, John month. Ooh, that's a good idea. Eliza,
It is.
Eliza, you're going to England soon. I expect some kind of to come on and give us some kind of road report of tour of famous Who sites.
I'd be glad to.
You at the Acton Grammar School or wherever, hanging out, Shepherd's Bush, Gold Hawk Club, So, but thank you for coming on. Thank you for being our Broadway Tommy expert.
Absolutely.
Of course. It was a pleasure. I'm glad I could walk you guys kind of through the whole chaos of this whole show.
And it is chaos with the different. Did you want to take a second and show off your sweet Sally Simpson outfit?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I've been working on this.
Really cute.
It's really great.
Thank you. I've been working on this since January. I kind of conceptualized it with a dear friend of mine. You can find him on social media. That Malden Mod. His name's Charlie. Wonderful, wonderful guy. And he's in sewing, tailoring school, and he sewed the jacket and the skirt for me.
Well, do me a favor, message me and send me his socials, and I'll put them up in the show notes here, okay?
Of course.
All right, guys, that's it for us. We'll catch you soon. Talk to you later.
No, I've come to the end. All my patience is gone. When I'm doubtful, I turn.